Another potential hindrance is that she took about 10 years off from her career to be at home and raise her children. Now, this is a contributing factor to the gender wage gap. However, when she looks back on her life, she doesn't regret this decision. She still got to achieve her goals of being a teacher and being a long-standing one at some schools that she was extremely happy at. And she also has very wonderful relationships with her children. It does raise the question, though, would she have had different opportunities, which would have given her different financial gains, that she may not be having some concerns that she has now after her husband has passed away? An additional theory that can be applied to my interviewee's life is Pec Ego Integrity. This theory is specific to the late adulthood developmental stage, and he asserts that you can be content with your life when you are older if you attain ego integrity. So this greatly overlaps with Erikson's theory, as we know that it's integrity versus despair. And you can kind of put them together in a way, in my own brain anyway, that if you do not achieve these three tasks that Peck puts out, then perhaps you would fall into the despair category that Erikson outlines. So we'll start with the first of those three tasks, which is ego differentiation versus work and role preoccupation. With that, it's that the relationships that you have are affirming, that you can look back on your career successes that you've had, and even though your physical abilities and potentially cognitive abilities might be changing in life and your stage of life has shifted, that you still feel comfortable and accomplished when you are discussing things with family, that you're still being respected. So ways in which the interviewee achieves this goal through my lens is that her family meets regularly and is very loving and close, that she has been there with her grandchildren and children, and now they seek to support her and spend time with her. She goes to the YMCA 4 times a week, and she also facilitates weekly parties at her house for her friends that she's had for decades. The second task that Peck puts forth is body transcendence versus body preoccupation, which relates to, aforementionedly, the body may not be able to keep up the same way it did when it was in its 20s or even 40s, when you are above the age of 65 and up. So ways that my interviewee has worked through this is that she paints almost every day. She has a theater membership in Philadelphia that she goes up and sees different shows. She continues to teach part-time, and she really has no interest in leaving that role because she loves the community that she has at the school and meeting new school children and staying abreast of what's new in culture and society. She looks forward to the spring and summer times when she can have what she calls dirt therapy, getting out in the fields and gardening. She also has been making travel plans as the pandemic has been ending. She's traveled all over the world. We had a very interesting conversation about Russia back in the early 2000s and talking about the current political climate now. So she's looking back to getting out there. She also goes and focuses on her physical health every week by doing cardio drumming, Zumba, yoga, and weightlifting at the Y. The third task of Peck's theory is ego transcendence versus ego preoccupation, which is looking at your life and knowing that you're close to meeting death and experiencing mortality, and that you're still optimistic about the future. She feels successful looking back on her own life and knowing the impact that she's had on younger generations. And I asked her about the current climate of the world today, and she was saying how this isn't the hardest time that we've ever gone through in her experience, going back from World War II up to today, but that humans are incredibly resilient. Some limitations to Erikson's theory are that the ranges are very broad, as I mentioned before. I believe that there is a potential chance that if I had done this interview with her back when she was 65 in 2007, her answers may have been different than they are now at age 80. These stages were also established in the 1950s when she was a young girl, and even her early years of life don't line up with what was considered normal based on what the family dynamics looked like for her. I also believe that you can age out of stages and still complete those developmental tasks that Erikson puts forth, that you can go back and heal through things like therapy and support groups. I want to close with a lesson that she gave me, which is how to live to 110. Have a good doctor, hairdresser, and a gym membership. Thank you for listening.